Welcome to Time Travel 8, and a look through the photo album of Mick Ledo, and then some cine film taken by Ken Robbins at Centrepod during the 71 season. Arguably the most well-known Anglia gasser in British drag racing history was Al's Gasser, which always brought the crowd to its feet whenever it came to the line. Wheels-up launches and wild sideways runs were its trademark, which also resulted in its untimely destruction in 1978 when it crashed into the Centrepod barriers. Another Al's Gasser was built, but although it won races, it had lost some of its wild antics. What many people didn't realise was that Al's Gasser started its drag racing career in the hands of Bob and Mick Ledo in 1966. Starting off with a 1953 Anglia, the stock engine and box were removed and replaced by those from a Ford Pilot. Front axle, suspension and steering remained stock, but the rear axle was replaced by a BMC commercial unit from a J2 van, which was the same as an Austin Westminster axle. The axle came with 3/9 gears and was fitted with 15-inch BMC wheels and Goodyear racing rubber. The car was initially called the Mangler. To give it a little extra poke, the flathead was fitted with Allard heads and 3 Strombergs on an Edelbrook manifold. In 1968, the flathead was removed to make way for a 303 taken from a 1953 Oldsmobile. It was opened out to 324 cubic inches and fitted with Jan's pistons and Grant rings. Carb was a Carter, 4-barrel and ignition Mallory. The engine was mated to the Pilot gearbox with a Ford truck clutch. 1971 saw a name change, and the Olds motor was fitted with later 1958 big valve heads and a moon cam. An impressive induction system was procured from Alan Herridge. 6 Ford Pilot Solex carbs were mounted on a pair of fabricated steel boxes so that 3 carbs fed each bank of cylinders. He was run on alcohol with the occasional 10% nitro mix and fired by a Vertex mag. A Titan aircraft fuel pump was used, which the team got from John Harrison. Alan Herridge made up the front tube axle, and rear axle was now a 49 Pontiac item, which came with 410 gears. A John Dodd 4-speed hydro autotrans setup was tried, but caused numerous problems and was later replaced by a Jag manual box from a Mark 7, an 11-inch Sheeper Revlock clutch. In 1973, the engine was changed once again to a 302 Chevy. Wolf race wheels were fitted, and the rear axle was narrowed. It was in this form that the car was sold to Al O'Connor. The Gledo brothers first came across dragsters in 1965 when they went to Graveley with their dad, who ran the refreshments caravan there. The sprint meetings were organised by the Thames Estuary Automobile Club, Britain's answer to the Southern California Timing Association. This is Alan Herridge's 1965 dragster called Pulsation, powered by a 331 Cadillac. The Dos Palmas Chevy gas dragster was the first American dragster to be owned and run by a British team. It was driven by ex-bobsleigh champion Norman Barkley. This is the X-Works Allard Dragon, the first of 2 dragons built by Allards in '64 and powered by a Shorrock's-blown 1500 Ford. This is Les Turner's immaculately prepared Turner Ford dragster. The car was run regularly with the Wild Bunch by Calvin Evans until being sold to a Dutch street rodder last year being 1997. 1966 saw Europe's first permanent drag strip as Poddington Airfield became Centrepod Raceway. Alan Herridge was back out in Pulsation. The 331 Cadillac had the induction system we were just looking at on Motorcycle. Jan's pistons, Shaler camshaft, Mickey Thompson roller lifters and Iski rockers were all fitted, powering the car to high tens at 130 miles an hour. Here Alan comes off the line against Straxton Development's teammate John Harrison in his Austin Atlantic powered digger. Ken Flathead Cooper was well known for his 37 Ford Yellow Coupe and a fenderless 33 Ford Cabriolet fitted with a 32 grille shell, both fitted with hopped up flatheads. In 1966 he ran this flathead dragster at Santipod called Bazooka, running 14-second ETs. 3 Hollies sat on a Navro manifold, heads were Edelbrook, given a compression ratio of 11:1. Gearbox was 39 Mercury with first and reverse gears removed. The narrowed 40 Ford axle had Allard brakes and Bentley wheels. Those exhaust stubs were made from Ford Pilot steering columns. Another flathead machine running at Santipod in 1966 was Yellow Rod, run by Robin Balch. It used a Ford Pilot chassis fitted with an aluminium body built to resemble a Model A Roadster. The standard Pilot engine was retained and fitted with Allard heads, twin carbs and copper exhausts, which propelled the car to blistering 17-second ETs. The first of many Jag Pops to appear at Santipod was Wild Thing, run by Bob Venison and Brian Gibson. Starting out with a 1955 Ford Poplar, the car was gutted and the engine and box were sold for £5, the price originally paid for the whole car. A Mark 7 Jag was purchased for £20, which donated the engine, box and rear axle and rear wheels. Front axle was fitted with 100E brakes and wheels, and in the interest of self-preservation and RAC regulations, a full roll cage was welded up. Joining Wild Thing in 1966 was the Liquidator, run by Jeff Barrett, Roger Horn and Mike Cornelius. Once again a Mark 7 Jag donated its engine and box. 1966 saw the return of Mickey Thompson's Harpy Aluminium Special, not having run since 1963. The car had been purchased by National Dragways and Amberk Engineering had rejuvenated it and renamed it Golden Hind. Tony Densham drove the car, and the following year the car was totally rebuilt and reappeared as a commuter. Here the car gets a close-up inspection by Ron Jelinek, who was over from the States with the US Commando drag team, and he ran this ex-Tommy Ivo twin-engined 401 Buick Slingshot. Returning for the second year in a row was Ultrasonic, driven by Bud Barnes and wrenched by Bob Gladstone. Here we see it coming out of the hole on a smoky 8-second run, lowering the strip record to 8.47, 189 miles an hour. '67 saw more Jag Pops appear at Santipod. One of the best turned out examples was Purple Passion, run by Jerry Jackson and Dave Cottingham. A 3.8 E-Type power unit with a D-Type cam and 3 2-inch SUs produced low 13s at 107 miles an hour. Hustler was Mark Stratton's new altered for 1967, built from the remains of his 1966 car. The 283 Chevy had later big valve Corvette fuel injection heads, and camshaft was a Duntoff 3/4 race. The single Holly carb setup was later swapped for twin Hollies on an Edelbrook XC8 Ramlog manifold. Fuel tank was from a Ford vacuum tank mounted behind the novel front suspension, which consisted of horizontally mounted single Ford console coil spring. Pete Atkins debuted a new tea altered in '67 called Slow Motion. The name was taken from a record-breaking hydroplane run by Stanley Stayers in America. Pete Atkins tea used a 289 Shelby copper engine, purchased from AC Cars at Thames Ditton, and it cost more than half the price of the car. The 98-inch wheelbase chassis was home-built, and Jeff Jago supplied the glass body. Yet another new car for 1967 was Stagecoach, run by Colin Dunster, Pete Marley and Mike Wells. The 92-inch wheelbase chassis was knocked up by the team, fitted with a 37 Austin Ruby body and a Mark 7 Jag engine with E-type head and 3 2-inch SUs. Exhaust manifold was from a Mark 10, later replaced by 6 chrome Zoomies. A Ford vacuum tank was again used as a fuel tank, being a popular choice for British dragster builders in the 60s. It ran a best of 12.72, 108 in 1967. Ken Flathead Cooper had a new chassis for his Slingshot in '67. Engine, transmission and wheels were all from his old car. Wheelbase was 122 inches, and Alan Herridge had made up a torsion bar suspension setup onto which Ken had mounted his much lightened Ford beam axle. Here Ken comes off the line against Brian Rigsaw in the ex-Ken Bunce Jag Slingshot. Renamed Wee Green P, it was now supercharged with a wade blower mounted in front of a 2.4 Jag. The Turner Ford Special was looking good as ever and now sported 750-15 Goodyear Blue Streak slicks. The immaculate Phaeton 1 Jag Slingshot of Jack Stilwell was driven by Tony Brown. Professional black upholstery was fitted into the neatly made mauve-painted bodywork with upswept tail to house the drag chute. Ian Garbutt debuted his new tangerine-painted Topolino altered at the '67 August Championship meeting. His first effort had been flathead powered. High Fever 2 used Buick Nowhead power and was unusual in that the body was mounted further back with the wheels in the doors. Harold Ball's 997 BMC strip duster now had a Roots Godfrey blower, homemade injection based on the Wall Phillips design, and a neat hydraulic throttle arrangement. This Olds rocket engine dragster of Leon Moss called Stablum Quadriga, and behind the Opus Hot Rod and E-Type Jag of Clive Skilton. Colin Ketley caused quite a crowd when he brought out his mini pickup for the first time called Hemony. It had a 392 in the back. 1968 saw a total revamp at Santa Pod. The start line was moved back and the pits were now alongside the strip, which had been completely resurfaced. Geronimo made its first appearance at the Easter meeting. Power unit was basically a 49 Olds rocket bored out to 324 cubic inches with 56 large valve heads. A Hilborn injection unit designed for a Cadillac needed only slight modification to the mounting holes to make it fit, and to help fuel feed, Mick Tickner had raised the fuel tank some 6 inches after the first couple of meetings. Drag racing champion for '68 was Alan Herridge, driving Motivation, seen here next to Tony Beadle's 49 Ford. The 283 Chevy was bored to 301 with Hilborn injection running nitro. It ran a 973 at 145 miles an hour to become the first junior fueler outside the USA into the 9s. To save weight, the entire body was made from magnesium. 750 by 15 Goodyear slicks were mounted to American mags. The 1965 Allard dragster reappeared in '68, now driven by Clive Skilton. The 354 Hemi had a front-mounted pop-fin blower setup, which was later mounted on top of the engine when the car became the first of many Revolution fuelers. Commuter was the first to run an 8 in 1968 with an 8.89 run at the Drag Racing and Hot Rod Trophy meet. Joining Commuter into the 8 was Tudor Rose, the Cleef Black fueler of Dennis Priddle and Rex Sluggett. Built by Priddle, the front half of the frame was a carbon copy of Don Long's Hawaiian 2. 21-year-old Rex Sluggett had been out to California in '67 and whilst there had ordered the 426 Hemi from Keith Black. At the end of '67, John Wolfe in his 427 Cobra ran a grudge race with the 283 Hustler Altered, and he was so impressed with the home-built hot rod, when it beat him, he decided to sponsor the car, and in '68 it had 7 litres of Chevy fitted. Opus 1 was now Chevy powered, having previously had a Daimler V8 and before that a Shorrock-blown 1500 Ford. Don Davis's Ford Pop had 400 cubic inches of Pontiac power and it was street legal. He called the car the Bandit. The 392 in the back of Hemony now had fuel injection for a bit of extra push, but it never reached the hoped for 8-second ETs. '70 saw the reappearance of the Dos Palmas dragster, last seen in '65. Now run by Wild Bill Weishout, it was renamed Asmodeus. Bill had started his drag racing career in 1954 as a mechanic for the Bean Bandit team. He then ran a Buick-powered 41 Chevy in '56 and a 49 Oldsmobile Gasser in '61. In '63 he ran a Ram Chargers built Superstock Plymouth and was runner-up to Shirley Shan at the Winter Nationals. He came to England courtesy of Uncle Sam in '67 and he'd been helping out Clive Skilton with the Allard Skilton car before being offered a ride in the Dos Palmas car. Bruce Brown's Prospector 2 was the old Pulsation chassis seen earlier, run by Alan Herridge from '65 to '67. Now fitted with a small block Chevy, it ran mid-tens at 130 miles an hour on carbs. It was later injected, but for now had 2 carbs with home-built scoops made from Isetta bubble car headlamps. Commuter carried on running up until 1974, but it was left behind performance-wise by the new cars of Skilton and Priddle. Ken Cooper carried on running his flathead dragster during the 70s with the British Flathead Racers Association, which was formed in 1974. Corgi produced replicas of some of the cars running at Santa Pod during the early 70s, and you should spot all 5 of these cars in this next bit of film taken by Ken Robbins in 1971. The 1971 Super Season at Santa Pod certainly lived up to its name, with both Skilton and Priddle running regular 7-second ETs, altered in the 9s, and records broken in all other classes. We're going to kick off with a visit to the Whitsun Big Go meeting, which had a record entry of 173 competitors. Colin Mullen was running well with Invader, and the Ison brothers were there with Wild Honey. Motorcycle ran a 1283 104, but Senior Comp was won by Roger Marshall in Good Vibrations. Dennis Priddle was having handling problems at half track, later traced to a buckle in one of the rear wheels, and he had to settle for an 8-second qualifying run. Ed Shaver was driving the Sizzler Reliant. Clive Skilton was also having handling problems in qualifying, traced to the right rear slick being on the wrong way. Wild Bill was back out in Asmodeus. And this is Steve Stringer's Tune Twister Cortina. The Hillbillies were there with the injected rat Topolino, but had to sit out eliminations with a broken diff. Ray Hoare in the immaculate new Saxon Slingshot made his best run yet at 11:24, 118 miles an hour, but he red lit in the first round. Smoky starts were still the order of the day in 71, although some of the teams were now using wrinkle walls. Undisputed king of the Smoky Starts was Wild Bill in Asmodeus, who on this run ran at 8.6 at 161 miles an hour. He gets followed up the strip by his rapid Charger pushcar. Ed Shaver won Top Street in his AMX with a 13.75 at 101. Yes, Granny, that's Jag powered. Two more Jag engines powered Dave Chester's Poacher Mini and Chris Wilson's Alleycat Thames van. The man on the Jag bike just now was Alan Thompson. Cliff Jones ran an 11.13 137 in the Crescent Coupe, but he red lit in the final. Then Clive Skilton in Second Revolution comes out to face Dennis Priddle in the Hot Wheels Fueler. This was the second matchup of the afternoon. Clive won the first race with a 7.63 to Dennis's 7.74. Clive again took the second matchup with a whole shot 7.92 to Dennis's quicker 7.86. The Glowworm Capri had a lengthened glass Capri body set on a box section chassis powered by a 427 wedge head Holman & Moody prepared Ford. That's Steve Cryer's Metronome Hemi Bond Bug, which failed to make eliminations. Roy Phelps brings out the Glowworm for a smoky demo run as we get ready for the fantastic internationals held in July, where 8,000 race fans came to watch 150 competitors in California sunshine. From South Africa, Arthur Christie shipped over his 354 home-built Hawaiian 3 to take on the British Fuelers. Tony Densham was driving the 7-litre surfboard Farfly. I wonder if anybody still has an NDRC Roadster Club t-shirt. Arnold Sundqvist from Sweden wheels out the Silver Street jet car, powered by a Westinghouse J46. It ran several 8-second runs at 150 miles an hour. Lunch break meant the usual parade of street rods and choppers, before Roy Phelps brings out the Wheelie Stingray. bunch of Swedish street cars showed up, including this Super Sano 327 powered 32 run by Benjamin Wallstrom. While here, he dropped into fiberglass repairs to have it pinstriped. The Ford Transit Supervan was doing demo runs, powered by a 289 Ford. It ran low 14s. Good Vibrations got a bye run in the first round of Senior Comp. Then Colin Mullen takes out the Hillbillies Topolino, the wrinkle walls on Invader biting to produce wheels up launches. These guys are getting excited as they know Alan Wigmore is about to come out to face Dave Stone. Wiggy takes it to move on to the Senior Comp semis. Arnold comes out again before the first round of Top Fuel, which featured 6 slingshots. Tony Densham brings out Firefly to face Alan Herridge, who was driving Commuter for the first time. The big Ford lost far, 6 feet out, and Tony Densham soloed Firefly to a sick 9.83. Brian Rigsaw in Taxi comes out to face Wild Bill in the first round of Senior Dragster. You can tell Asmodeus wasn't running right by the lack of tar smoke, and Taxi takes the win. Back to Top Fuel, first round, and Dennis Priddle brings out the Hot Wheels car, and joining him was Sweden's Born Anderson with his 392 digger Subsonic. Born jumps the lights, letting Dennis through with an easy 8.67, while Born runs a 8.5 173 with the red light glowing in his lane. Mad Arthur brings out the Hawaiian, now fitted with Kelly slicks, replacing the low-profile roundy-round type tyres the car came over with, but he needn't have bothered, because pulling down behind him was the Castrol-coloured oil can of Clive Skilton. It was all over in 7.81 seconds and 180 miles an hour to Arthur's 9.79 161. In fact, Clive got a little out of shape on this run, nearly crossing the centre line and giving the win to the South African. Ed Shaver blows away the Swedish 32. Top Street was dominated by Gunback's Frightened Chicken Corvette, which ran an 11.75 in the final. Semi-final time in Senior altered as Invader leaps off the line to shut down Good Vibrations. Alan Wigmore gets a bye run into the final and gives the crowd a crowd-pleasing Smoky Rum. Steve Cryer brings out the Wild 392 Bond Bug in the first Top Comp semi-final against Lance Tongrin's Chevy T. the Swedish driver taking it with a 10.07 139 to metronome's 11.79 123. Then the immaculate shutdown altered of Freddie Whittle comes out for the second semi-final to face Kevin Pillin in pure 7. Freddie smokes his way into the record books with a blistering 9.85 132 to become the first British altered into the 9s, but unfortunately pulled a red light, giving the win to pure 7. John Siggery and Geronimo took senior dragster, beating Tony Anderson in the final with a 9.41 137. Earlier in qualifying, John had run 9.34 143 to take Alan Herridge's old junior Fueler record. Final of senior comp saw the two Tangerine Vivas of Wigmore and Mullen. Invader clocked a 12.19 to It's Aviva's 12.27, but pulled a cherry in the process, forfeiting the win to the Wigmore team. Roland Pratt came out for a practice run, but all was not well for the Hillbillies Topolino. It was decided to run Firefly against Subsonic for a 3rd and 4th place honours, as both Commuter and the Hawaiian had broke, but Firefly wouldn't ignite, leaving the Swede to solo to an 8.55 171, as Firefly owner Bob Phelps was tearing what was left of his hair out. They eventually got Firefly going, and Tony put in a demo run for the crowd. Ken unfortunately missed the Top Fuel final, but he did film the return down the strip. Clive was the one celebrating as he whipped Dennis with a 7.35 to Dennis's 7.55 at 190 miles an hour. No terminal speed was recorded in Clive's lane, as the oil can was still getting out of shape at the top end, wiping out the lights. The handling problem was later found to be caused by a bent front axle. Clive's win earned him £550 and the SCMA trophy. Everybody went home sunburnt but happy, having witnessed some of the best racing ever seen at Santa Pod, and looking forward to the August bank holiday meeting. Cold, windy conditions greeted the 178 racers and 12,000 plus spectators at the August meet. Clive Skilton missed out on the whole deal as he was waiting for pistons to arrive from the US, so it was left to Dennis Priddle and Tony Densham to battle it out for top dragster honours. Firefly was running better and qualified with an 8.44 189, the rear wheels leaving the ground at the top end. Roy Phelps was back out in the wheel stander, which kept turning right, so it decided to start the run in the left lane and cross the finish line on the right. Colin Mullen was back out in Invader, trying not to red light this time. Ian Garbutt made one of his last appearances in High Fever. Now Ford powered, it had also had its wheelbase reduced to comply with the 25% engine setback rules for altereds. Here he comes out against Alan Sherwin in the very short wheelbase Jag T Travel Agent. Phil Elson now had blown Hemi power in his altered, and he had no trouble lighting up the slicks. Dennis Priddle was getting quicker and quicker in the Hot Wheels fueler, and he qualified with a 7:55 183. The Stones team pulled the Chevy apart in Opus 1. This was to be the car's last season, as in '72 they bought Derek Benbow's Turtle T and turned it into T-Rack. The Hillbillies Topolino was back on form at this meeting. The injected 454 originally powered the Swedish Topolino Mafia Mouse, and in '72, when the Hillbillies went funny car racing with the ill-fated Transcontinental, the Rat was bought by Bruce Brown, who put it in Age Machine. Dennis tried a bit too hard on one of his qualifying runs, putting an enormous wheel stand and bending the front wheel on his return to Earth. He later came out and lowered the strip record to 7.22, 194 miles an hour. It was a bad day for Alan Wigmore, as It's a Viva became Bits of Viva when a gust of wind caught the chute and sent Alan 5 times floor over roof into Farmer Braddock's pet mangle wurzels. Tony Weston's solid engineering enabled Wiggy to walk away from the crash. Stagecoach was still going strong after 5 seasons and takes on Reg Clark in the Jag Pop Thunderbolt. Ed Shaver was happy as he ran his first 12 in the AMX, but he pulled a red light in the final. Alan Herridge was driving the Glowworm Capri as he comes out for a bleach burnout. Since shut down ran a 9 at the Internationals, all the top comp cars were now running 9s like double figures were going out of style. On this run against Roland Pratt, Alan runs 9.33, 152, so the Hillbilly is 9.83, 138. John Whitmore in Dragonfly ran a 10.47, 120, but got beat by Harold Ball. Geronimo again won Senior Dragster against Tony Anderson's V6 Trouble Dragster. Final of Top Comp, and Dennis Stone proves that Chevy's rule and Kelly Tyres stick, putting down a 9.66, 143 as Freddie Whittle pulls another red light, his favourite colour. Then Priddle came out again, loaded with 80% nitro, which meant a 6-second run or bust. Unfortunately, he bust, putting 2 rods through the block, but Dennis was still smiling as he had the 71 championship title and now held the European record.